Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Sophia with Garden State Film Festival, and we are here talking about the short documentary, Marjorie Eliot's Parlor Entertainment Harlem. Here to talk to us about it is the writer, director, producer, and one of the DPs, John Decker, and the other DP, Sarah Natoli. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you for having us.
Of
Hi,
course.
morning.
Yeah, we're
Doing
excited.
good. Okay, I'm so glad we're all doing good. I'm so excited to interview you guys today. Congratulations into getting into Garden State Film Festival.
Thank you.
Let's have you both introduce yourselves again for our audiences, please.
Sure. I'm John Decker. I am a photographer and a director here in Asbury Park, New Jersey.
Thank you, John.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Sarah Natoli. I'm a camera operator, DP, living in New York.
Awesome. So I would love for one of you to tell us about Marjorie Eliot's Parlor Entertainment Harlem. Maybe John.
Sure. Yeah. So Marjorie is somebody I met through a mutual friend who's actually a Catholic priest in Brooklyn, New York. And I had an opportunity through a good friend who wanted to be a benefactor on a film. I'd worked with him for years. He was a client of mine, and he said he just sold his company. And he said, "Are there any projects you're currently working on?" I said, "No, I'm actually open to a new project, like something personal that I felt was important and would touch on something that could maybe lift people's spirits. We're coming off the heels of 2020 and people were feeling a little down. And I was just looking for sort of a human interest story that I thought would be compelling and maybe raise, the spirit in people. And when I spoke to Paul, we were at a meeting in Brooklyn, and he says, my dear friend Marjorie Eliot is probably one of the most remarkable people I know. Now, Paul is a pretty dynamic figure. He's a novelist, an art curator, amongst many other things, and plus he's a Catholic priest. So I said, I trust you, Paul. And he says, I'm going to arrange a meeting. I'd like you to meet her. And I went up to her apartment in Harlem, New York, and we sat and we talked for hours. And I had such a connection to this person. I felt like I knew her my entire life. And she's just such a beautiful spirit. She's such a wonderful woman. And when she told me her story, it brought me to tears. And I just knew at some point I was going to have to create something that would honor her story and her legacy, everything she's contributed and given to people through these concerts, which she performs out of her apartment for the last 30 years. Every Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock, she hosts a free jazz and theater show to honor her sons, her children who have passed away. And it is just, she had me come to one of these events, and I sat there, and it was just magical. I mean, there was just something about her, the performance who accompanied her, and the atmosphere of the room that I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And so I figured, okay, this is the project. And then from there, it just sort of evolved to, the logistics of, okay, how do I make this? How do I do this where it's not too invasive? Marjorie's now in her 80s. She's been approached by lots of people, she told me, but she wasn't interested in working on a video that would somehow glorify her. She's very humble. She's a very amazingly dynamic, interesting person. She's a playwright. She's an actress. She's a poet. She taught children's theater, but she didn't want this to be about her. And I said, well, if we could create something that would just honor what you do and why you do it, she said, I would be okay with that. And she says, normally I say no when people approach me for these types of things. But she goes, but I feel good about this. I trust you. And she's good friends with Paul. And the next thing you know, we're just planning a video shoot. And I had reached out to Sarah. I got Sarah's information through a friend of mine, and saw some of her work and was very impressed. I said, this is going to come together. And so basically that's how it all started.
Wow. And That is just so fascinating. I couldn't believe that someone in Harlem puts on free jazz shows for the past 30 years, let alone her story also brought me to tears. So, congratulations on making this documentary. I'm really happy she okayed that after so many people asked her to make videos on her. What was that turnaround time from when she said, yes, let's make this documentary, from when you guys started the work? How long did that take?
So I met Marjorie in the summer of 2021. And the first thing she said to me, she goes, John, I think it's important that you come out to the show
Mm.
and or come to several shows, of which I did. And every time I went to that show, I just felt more and more connected to her, what she's achieved. Um, and prior to the pandemic, there was 40, 50 people in that apartment lined up in the hallways to hear these concerts. After the pandemic, as you would imagine, those numbers have diminished significantly, and people were scared. And yet, at the same time, she wanted to do it. She wanted to reintroduce people back live into her apartment, but do it safely. And so, part of the motivation there was to bring people back in a safe environment. And then we went right into production in the fall of 2021, finish editing in the winter of 2022.
Oh,
Mhm.
wow. That's a pretty long time.
Yeah, there were some gaps because I have commercial projects that were vying for my attention, and I had to balance it. And the one thing I didn't want to do was just rush through this.
Right.
I wanted to live with it, edit some of it, review, sleep on it, think about it. Mostly what I wanted to do was make a sort of simple film that would tell her story in a way that would some way capture the atmosphere of what I felt when I sat there in that room. And there was so many different angles I thought about approaching this from, but simplicity sometimes is your best friend with these sorts of things. And I felt that between her and the musicians who accompanied her and the interviews that they delivered, I just felt like they just told the story. And so I kind of kept it simple. And again, the show itself is so remarkable. It's truly like an aesthetic event. And so I wanted to then think about in terms of how it would look, how it would be colored. And I just felt this warmth, this sort of like that was visceral in the room. And so when I talked to Sarah, we corresponded about how could we create a look and an atmosphere that would honor what it is that she actually does every Sunday. And so maybe Sarah, if you
Yeah, I think the simplicity was the right word, where you didn't want to go too crazy or dramatic with the look just to downplay what they're already doing. Um,
Mm.
yeah, I told John before, originally when we met, that when I first moved to New York, I kept hearing about Marjorie and wanting to make it my way up there just for fun. On a Sunday, I never made it out. So when I first got in touch with John and started talking to him, I was ridiculously excited just to be a part of it and get
Wow.
there, film her, be there on like a whole nother level. Um, and I never really knew the backstory to it all. So it was, I don't know, it was something really special that I'm kind of excited for the world to see.
Mm.
Um, yeah,
That is crazy that when you went to New York, you heard of her and you've been wanting to go, and then someone approaches you to make a video on it.
yeah, yeah. It
I
was
love
on my
stuff like
radar
that.
since 2016 when I moved here, and it
Wow.
was every single Sunday, and it just never happened.
Hmm.
Pandemic, I was like, you know what? That I lost my chance. It will never happen again. So this
And it
was kind
came to
of
you. The chance came to you. Her set was like the perfect play. Her apartment was like the perfect set. It was so gorgeous. Can you guys talk to me about how you did collaborate to find those shots? And there was like color in the shots too. I noticed so many different colors, and it was gorgeous. It was gorgeously shot. So can you guys talk about how you collaborated, how you found those shots?
thank you. Sure. Yeah. Sarah, do you want to weigh in on that when your initial
sure.
impression? Yeah.
Sure. When you go into her place, it's everything. It's white walls, very clean, so much light, natural light coming in. So you didn't really want to take away from that. But she did have these really nice practical lights and sconces on the walls, and we just had good practical bulbs that our GBW just changed all the colors. So I think we just both collaborated and agreed on 2 colors that would be nice for the background, but not, I don't know, take away from the natural light and natural things that are happening. So it was
That's
kind of, we wanted some kind of color and then also keeping with the crispness. Kind of played through all the different color combinations and we're like, these 2.
And did you guys have to do that in person, go there, set up the lights, check it out, or that's all like on paper? I don't know how that works.
Oh no,
No, we did it in
we did it
person.
on the fly. She actually had Marjorie had an overhead lamp with some colored bulbs in it. So she clearly had the intention of creating a certain warmth and atmosphere to this apartment. And when I went there to see the concert the first time, it was a beautiful combination of available light, which was just streaming in through the windows, and yet there was this sort of weird ethereal color glow that was just sort of faintly cast upon the players, and it was just a very beautiful, almost painterly scene. And again, I didn't want to deviate and just sort of walk in there and impose a completely different look or feel. I wanted to, more than anything, maintain the integrity, um, and maybe just slightly embellish what was already there and enhance what was there to give the feeling for the viewer that uh, this is what it's like to sit here in this little room with this history and with all these ghosts of people, all these players who have played there, and the players who came before her, who influenced this kind of music and these kinds of performances. And I just really wanted people to experience that through the film. And so Sarah and I just had a great synergy. We had a very similar aesthetic sensibility, and I felt like we just gelled. And so we came into the room, we did what we did, and then we allowed everybody to do their part.
Oh, well, I mean, it's breathtaking. It's so beautifully shot. John, have you directed a documentary before? I'm assuming you're a director, filmmaker, photographer. I'm assuming you have, but
I have, but it's funny. The last documentary I produced was in the 90s, and it was I worked in Central America and Honduras, creating a project built around street children and how they were kind of fighting to survive, and how Americans were going down there building housing to sort of give these kids, many of which were being murdered or tortured, uh, an opportunity to survive, some as young as 5 years old. And so when I went down there and worked in Honduras, which at the time had the highest murder rate in the world, it was just my entree into the world of documentary filmmaking. And I was just in there every day. There was some crazy thing that would happen. And all I know is that my intention was to get out of there alive and create something that could help raise awareness to the plight of these children. And other than that, I've directed lots of different types of videos. I do corporate videos to earn a living, pay the bills. I was working with a company out in Belgium right before the pandemic hit. So I'm sort of all over the place. But documentary filmmaking, this style of documentary filmmaking, documentary is a big word, interests me a lot. I think it has to do with being able to create content that could help people. And in this case, I really wanted to kind of introduce Marjorie to a broader audience, help drive traffic back into her Sunday afternoon performance in a post-COVID environment.
oh, yeah, you definitely did that. I mean, she has a new audience member in myself. I was really drawn to in your bio. You said your aim is to produce work that inspires unity,
Mm-hmm.
and I could tell that the past documentary that you made does that, and this one does as well. Sarah, I want to hear from you. We're running on the last minute, but what work do you gravitate towards? What stories do you like to tell, and does this documentary fall into that?
Absolutely. I think I'm kind of on the John side where I do so many different styles of work, but documentaries with real humans telling stories is what draws me. Specifically, if it's music related, it's makes it so much more fun and nice to film. Where always the darker stories that people don't know are nice. Not, I mean, not nice to hear, but nice to film just to get out there and show awareness. But there's something nice about music where you get to play a little bit more with the camera. You're hearing their life story. You're hearing their art. So I want to say music documentaries might be my favorites. So this was exactly perfect. And I didn't know her background story. So it was kind of the best combo of all of it.
Right, absolutely. And quickly, let me shout out Garden State Film Festival. I know you're zooming in, not zooming, streaming in from Asbury Park. So will you both come to the festival to watch this documentary on
Oh,
screen?
absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, lovely.
Absolutely.
Can't wait.
Oh, me too. I can't wait. I can't wait for audiences to see this. Let me tell everybody how they can watch Marjorie Eliot's Parlor Entertainment Harlem. It will be playing Saturday, March 25th, 4 to 6 p.m. in Cranford Theater. So definitely check it out. Meet these two wonderful creatives, and we'll see you there. Thank you guys again so much for taking the time out today.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.